Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and we're all excited and waiting for iOS 18 at WWDC in just a few days, but Apple's actually been hard at work at the next generation of iPhone, and production has actually already started on the displays according to more recent leaks. I thought we could take a look at everything expected in the upcoming iPhones and then maybe revisit them once it's announced and see what Apple actually updates and has to offer. Now, WWDC 2024 will be a software-only event, so don't expect any iPhones, and on Apple.com you can see that you can watch it on June 10th, and originally some people rumored that we could see a new Apple TV, but don't expect any iPhones as those typically release later in the year. We'll talk about when to expect that later in the video, but as far as the first thing goes, let's talk about the price, and these are called models or dummy units that actually represent what the final versions look like. They're pretty close every single year, and you can take a look at last year's, where it actually has the same sort of layout that we have now, along with the action button on the side, but some of the colors are off and some of the camera bump might be off. And as you can see, here's some others that represent previous models that have actually been released and look very real compared to what we typically get every year. So that gives you an idea that these I've shown off before should represent about the overall dimensions and what we should expect. But the first thing is price. So far, there will not be any price increases as far as what we're hearing. That doesn't mean we won't see an increase. If Apple decides to give it a 2 terabyte option, then we could see that, or maybe they update components so much or just prices go up in general, we could see a slight increase. However, so far we haven't heard any of that. When it comes to colors, the new Pro models are expected to have similar colors, but the Pro models are expected to get rid of the blue color in favor of sort of a rose gold color, or rose titanium is what some people are calling it. Now, the colors are not always accurate. Some people a few years back said we'd get an orange and we never did, so we may or may not see that, but either way, we can expect a new color for the new Pro models with a new sort of process that might make it have the same sort of back that we currently have on the 15 and 15 Plus models, where it's sort of infused glass. So we could see something along those lines, but either way, we do expect it to have a matte finish still. As far as the non-Pro models, we can expect basically the same sort of colors with a pink, yellow, blue, and other colors as well. Now, with the dimensions of the overall Pro model, the 16 Pro is meant to be similar to what we have with the 15 Pro. According to Ice Universe on Twitter and Weibo, the 16 Pro model will be the same thickness and height, but it will actually be slightly wider at 7.45 millimeters instead of 7.60 millimeters. This would be to accommodate a slightly larger 6.3-inch display that would allow for thinner bezels, but also a larger display size, and would also increase to 194 grams from 187 grams. So the bezel is expected to shrink. We are still expecting a dynamic island, and not too many changes as far as that goes. With the 15 Pro Max model compared to the 16 Pro Max model, we're expecting similar sizes, but I'll show you that here, but we're expecting it to get a little bit bigger as well. 8.26 millimeters from 8.25 as far as its overall thickness. It will also be 163 millimeters tall versus 159.9, and it will also be 77.58 millimeters wide compared to 76.70 millimeters. The display is also said to increase to 6.9 inches from 6.7, will have thinner bezels, and increase weight to 225 grams from 221. And if we put this dummy unit side by side, you can actually see this change here. So it's slightly thicker. It's also slightly taller. If I line them up like this, you can see, let me do that again. You can see it's slightly taller, and also it's slightly thicker. So most of this is going to be very similar, and in the hand it feels about the same, at least with this dummy unit here. So overall, it feels very similar. When it comes to the display, it's expected to get some upgrades as well, maybe benefiting from the recent tandem OLED in the new iPad Pro. It could have higher sustained brightnesses, be more power efficient using micro-lens OLED technology in the regular model, and then also, again, those tandem OLEDs in the newer model. That would allow also for it to maybe stay higher brightnesses without overheating. We're expected to get some changes with MagSafe on the back. So currently we have a MagSafe ring, and let me show you that with magnet paper. And you can see with magnet paper, there's the magnet ring right there, and that magnet ring is said to get a little bit thinner. It would make sense if they need to use some additional space inside for other components, and it's said to get a little thinner according to a French case company called Shop System. So we can expect that. Of course, I wouldn't expect the strength to be any different as far as that goes. I don't think these prototypes have any sort of ring in them at all. You can see here, but on the real model, you can see it. Now, when it comes to the overall design, we do expect some changes. Of course, you can see on this model here, we have our power sleep wake button, and we have what looks to be a new capture button. On the other side, there's a SIM card tray, which we expect in non-US models, and of course your volume buttons and action button. But everything else would be the same, but we would have this capture button, and it would allow you to not only capture photos and video, but also maybe zoom in and out by sliding back and forth or side to side, and maybe some additional programmable functions we could get as well. But we don't really know exactly what it's going to be used for, as you could do that with the volume buttons before as far as taking pictures and video. Of course, on the non-Pro models, I've shown this before, we expect a vertical layout. This would allow for better photo and video with spatial photo and videos for Apple Vision Pro, and maybe just to differentiate the way it looks. This is also expected to have a capture button, as you can see here in the dummy model, so we can expect similar features, and we're also expecting an action button on the non-Pro models this year as well. So good things we're expecting. I've talked about some of that in the past, though. The cameras are also said to get an update. So one of the good things is, those of you that were worried about overall lens flare, they're said to have a new coating, and that's typically what happens on high-end cameras. They'll put a coating on the lens to get rid of some of that flaring. Hopefully they'll get a better coating here and reduce some of that. In addition to that, we're supposed to get an ultra-wide camera that's 48 megapixels on the Pro models. So we'd get a higher resolution Pro model ultra wide along with the 48 megapixel regular photo lens, and that would allow for maybe 8K video for spatial photos and videos. I'm not sure, but it would allow for it as far as the overall megapixel size. Both the Pro and Pro Max models are also said to be getting the larger 5x tetraprism zoom lens, so that's coming to both Pro and Pro Max models this year. Something else I haven't talked about is we're supposed to get a mic upgrade. You'll see there's a representation of one of the microphone holes, and it's supposed to be updated to help with overall voice input for Siri and AI related features. So we could see that, of course. Now, we do, of course, expect a CPU increase specifically in the Pro and Pro Max models. We may see the current one in the regular models, but the updated models would expect to get maybe an A18 Pro chip or whatever Apple decides to call it. It should have some sort of neural engine updates that allow for AI on device beyond what iPhone 15 Pro models can offer, and maybe some surprises we haven't thought about with iOS 18 when it launches later on. A new chip would allow for things such as Wi-Fi 7, and it's expected to be more efficient and have thermal improvements, maybe similar to that of the new iPad with maybe a graphite heatsink material. So that's expected with the new 16 Pro models. Of course, many of us want better battery life, and battery technology in life is expected to get an update that could allow for faster charging, but also have better heat management. Maybe it'll be coated in stainless steel and utilize stacked battery technology to allow for more density. So maybe we'll have a larger size. Some people have said that we're going to get smaller size batteries in the 16 Plus models. But either way, we should have similar battery life, maybe even more due to overall efficiencies, and then of course being able to charge it faster. Now, all of these things are just sort of iterative updates and not really anything terribly exciting. Of course, the 16 and 16 Plus models will be the most recognizable with the camera layout change, but the regular model really will be difficult to differentiate if you have a 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max or 16 Pro or 16 Pro Max. It just will be difficult to tell, as it's supposed to be sort of similar. I would expect the iPhone 17 to have the larger changes. There have been some rumors about an iPhone 16 Ultra, but probably a 17 Ultra would be more likely, as Apple's said to be getting rid of the 17 Plus model and in favor of maybe a slimmer model with some higher specs. But we'll have to wait and see, and that's over a year away at this point. Now, as far as the release date, well, based on what we've seen in the past, we can expect mid to late September. So if we take a look at the calendar, of course, WWDC is just a few days away on Monday the 10th. So in about 3 months or so, maybe in mid-September to late September, we could see the release of the iPhone 16, 16 Plus, 16 Pro, and 16 Pro Max. That makes a lot of sense. That's typically what Apple does. So we could see that then, along with iOS 18 coming out the same week, usually on the Monday before. So something along those lines is what we could expect. And if you're wondering if you should maybe run out and buy an iPhone 15 now, well, if you don't care about any of the possible features I mentioned with the upcoming phones, well, certainly you could run out and get one. You know what it has to offer, and especially if you can get some great deals, maybe with a trade-in, get it free or very low price, then it might be worth it. However, if you want the latest and greatest, I would just wait a few months till we have the new ones. Then you can trade in your current phone and upgrade to that. So I personally, of course, will try and get my hands on them as soon as they're available and unbox them and show them to you, but that's a few months off. Now we're waiting for iOS 18 with all of the big changes we're expecting. I'll talk about that more in future videos, and I've talked about that some already, and of course we'll see it for ourselves on Monday, so I can't wait to see that. Let me know if you're planning to pick up an iPhone 16 this year, what you think about them, what model you'll get. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.